In today's business world, being an average CEO is no longer an option. That's why we're committed to equipping you with the resources and the tactics necessary to not just survive, but to thrive. You're listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline podcast, where we are more than just a voice in the crowd.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Not Your Average CEO Lifeline. Today, we're going to talk about delegation. Danielle and I live and breathe delegation. Not only do we delegate to our assistants, we train our assistants to work with our clients. So in this area, we are experts to the max. So Danielle, can you talk to our audience a little bit about what we do and how we see clients use delegation as part of their everyday, how they come to us being so disorganized and, I'll let you take over because you know it best.
So, two reasons that clients will come to us. One, they're at really a breaking point with just their day to day operational, administrative activities. Usually, when they're coming to us, they could have used a virtual assistant a while ago, and they've really hit their breaking point. We also have clients that will come to us where they're using delegation for growth. So, they're at sort of an inflection point in their business, and they're thinking, if I can delegate, these three areas of my business, it's going to make a big difference in how my business grows, the trajectory of my business, how many people I'm able to reach, my revenue generation, et cetera. So we have people come to us in two of those ways. Most clients will use delegation, or one of our largest tasks that we do is what we call like inbox management, email triage. Most entrepreneurs and business owners, leaders can resonate with the fact that email is probably the largest time suck of your day. And if you can get that under control with the help of a virtual assistant, a skilled virtual assistant, that can make a big difference. There's been different studies that Nicole and I have read and referenced. Some say it can be 20% of your day. Some say it can be even up to 40% of your day is spent just being bogged down by emails. So we know it's a significant amount. And so that's one of the places where business owners will start using virtual assistants and using delegation to either maintain or grow their business. We'll also see folks use it in a number of ways for marketing. So they'll use virtual assistants for digital marketing, so social media, working on ad campaigns, writing blogs, doing content development, researching what competitors are doing, keyword research for SEO. Those are all really important things that can drive your company forward that most business owners, entrepreneurs don't have time to do. And another thing that we will often do is basic bookkeeping tasks. And so a lot of times business owners are doing this themselves and they might be perfectly capable of doing it, but it's generally not the best use of their time. A skilled bookkeeper can reconcile your monthly accounts and, in just a few hours a month, where sometimes if you're doing it yourself, you might be taking 10 or 15 hours because it's not your area of expertise. And so there's a lot of times where you want to look at, or where we advise our clients to look at, just because you can do something doesn't mean that you should. It doesn't mean that that's the best use of your time. And so we look at that a lot with our clients. But we generally find that clients using us, to maintain or grow their business, just to get out of that sort of rabbit hole of doing so much administrative and operational work. And then ultimately, it's just giving them back time, and they can spend that on hobbies, passion projects, spend it with their loved ones, do other things in their business that they want to focus on. And that's really where we feel that we serve them best.
I'm going to play devil's advocate. If I'm listening, right, all of those things sounded wonderful. We want to give you, as our listeners, action items, right? Where can you start to do any number of those things that you listed, Danielle? What is one thing that they can start doing today to delegate to someone else?
I think the biggest time suck, like we talked about, is email, but that can feel very overwhelming to delegate at first. And so, generally, our clients, Nicole, I don't know if you would agree with this, they start off smaller and they eventually go to larger tasks. So something like email management, while that can be a big chunk of time, it might not be something that you're comfortable giving away to a virtual assistant right away. So I tell clients to take a look at their list of to-dos and the things that have been on there for weeks, sometimes months, sometimes it's been on there for the whole quarter, is something that you haven't got to because you just don't want to do it. It doesn't get you excited. You don't know where to start, or you don't feel like you have the expertise. And looking at those things on your to-do list, being able to share those action items with a virtual assistant and a VA can knock them out quickly. It's a real confidence booster in using a virtual assistant. It helps you and your virtual assistant get to know each other, just starting to build that trust and being able to work together. And then you can do those bigger things like let's work on social media posts, let's work on content development, let's triage my email. But if someone's looking for those things to delegate, I always tell them to look at that list and what has been hanging on there. And, I am guilty of this myself, but I'll have to-do lists for the week. And there's things that will come over from the last week and the week before. And those are the things that, are really best to just give to someone else. And they're still important. They're so critical to your business. They have to get done, but you're not doing them for one reason or another. So that's a good thing to delegate.
Yeah, I would agree. The inbox is always something, if you're not an inbox zero person like myself, you want someone to triage it. And that is scary, right? You're going to have to give someone access to everything. They're looking at everything that comes in your inbox. So giving them some initial tasks that have been on your to-do list is easy, and it's a confidence boost. My advice that if you're nervous to delegate is to use a Loom video and do it yourself first, right? You may give them something and it comes back and now this is garbage work, right? I don't know what this is. This isn't what I asked for. But if you're not used to delegating, you may not delegate it in the right way. You may not understand their communication style or their working style. So my best piece of advice is to use a Loom video. Give them an example of what you're looking for. It doesn't have to be the Loom platform. It can be a Zoom video. It can be whatever recording platform. Record yourself doing the task so that they can see and understand and ask questions if they need to. This way it's clear, it's precise, and it can be reused if you decide to give it to another assistant or it goes to someone else down the line. But delegating even that first task can be scary if you don't have trust or confidence. And this is something new, and understanding that it does take time to build a relationship to get to that inbox is crucial. But understanding that it does take time to explain things and do have to have patience. That Loom video can make that, it can bridge that gap a little bit easier than just sending a quick email that may be bullet pointed with a document. That's definitely my one big piece of advice when starting to delegate.
Nicole, I'd love to ask you a question. So, one of the many things Nicole is very knowledgeable about is working styles. So particularly in our company, we use something called a DISC assessment. There's a number of different behavior analysis assessments that different companies use. Nicole has chosen for us to use DISC for a number of reasons. But so Nicole, I'd love to hear, what you think, how working styles play into working with a virtual assistant, why that should be a consideration when you're choosing a virtual assistant, and why that's important.
It's very important. Assessing what you are looking to get out of a virtual assistant will lead to knowing what behavioral style you want to choose. You need to know your own. You can take one of these free assessments, whether it's a Myers-Briggs or a DISC or a Colby. Understand your working style. If you are a CEO, you may be very visionary. You might be high level thinker. Your emails are always bullet pointed. They may not be formal. You are going to want to look for someone that is detail oriented if you are struggling with things as your inbox. If you're struggling to complete tasks or finish projects, you're going to want to look for an assistant that's detail organized to get you there. But if you are someone that is still high level thinker, visionary, but you are looking for them to talk to clients, you are looking for them to be talking to your team or customer oriented, you may not need someone detail oriented. You may need someone who has well-developed interpersonal skills. So knowing what your style is and what you're looking for them to execute is going to be key. me being detail oriented, I know I need someone who's detail oriented. That's usually key. Unless they are doing something like phone work for me. Are they following up on leads? Are they taking discovery calls? Then I may want them a little bit detail oriented, but I do want them to be a little more personalized, and able to communicate on a higher level than someone who's more have that engineer brain or that visionary brain. So really understanding your style is the key to delegation when then looking at your tasks to say, okay, what will get me across that finish line? What is going to allow us to grow? What piece of that puzzle and that skill set am I missing?
That is very important. I think that's something that Nicole does really well as well with our team and understanding who our virtual assistants are, the nuances of how they work. And I think it's important to note, in those assessments, there's no right or wrong answer.
No, there's not.
It's just about who complements your working style best, who you work best with. But it's not like a test. It's it's just an assessment to understand that. Um, Nicole, I know we talk a lot about delegation, and I just wanted to give an example that we really, practice what we preach. So,
Mm-hmm.
Nicole and I, about a year and a half ago now, embarked on a journey to write a book called Not Your Average CEO. And of course, we have this is our full time job, and Nicole is our COO. I'm our CEO, and so we're very busy with clients and team. And but we knew that we wanted to write a book. Nicole had some really great ideas of things that she just wanted to put out there into the world. But it did require delegation for us to get it done because while Nicole and I wrote the content, and like I said, she came up with the ideas and we had this vision behind it. There were a million other steps that went into writing that book. So, Nicole, can you talk a little bit about how we practice what we preach and how you have used delegation in this practical way?
Yeah, a lot of people think too, like, want to write a book. It'll be simple. I'll put the content there and then I'll publish it. There are so many steps in between, and understanding your expectations and where you need to be in order to complete this project is going to require delegation a lot. I would say 90% of things, if you're looking to scale or complete a large project, it requires delegation. You shouldn't be taking it on yourself. You have to think about burnout and self care. So, the things that you can delegate would be finalizing a book cover, right? Someone can give you ideas. Formatting for your book is really something that can be delegated relatively quickly. Editing, of course, can be a simple task to ask, an editor, can you please edit the book? Then you have to think about marketing, all that comes with it. If you're taking on everything from content to um, launch ideas, from formatting to editing to table of contents, if you have pictures that you need to add, if you need to get permissions, if you have to do citations, there is a very lengthy list. And even though Danielle and I have that experience, right, we have the ability to do all of these things. Does it make sense? I always like to tell our clients or telling who I'm speaking to, think about how much you pay yourself to do that task. Is that what that task equates to? Is editing the book X amount of dollars that you would pay yourself per hour? Does that make sense? Are you going to see a return on it? So while you may have the abilities, you have to learn to say no to avoid burnout, to avoid failure in a task or not able to complete a task. Understand where your time and your energy is spent. And I think that is at the heart of why we need to delegate if we're looking to grow, whether it's with a book or whether it's with your business. Uh, that's has to be done.
Nicole, along those lines, are there tasks that you feel that you should never delegate? So, like in this case, to use the book as an example, we delegated various aspects of the marketing, reaching out to booksellers and bookstores and doing research and citations and helping format the book and create an ebook and all those things. But obviously, we didn't delegate the actual writing part of it, so the core of the book. Um, so, in that same vein, are there tasks that you feel someone should never delegate?
Of course, there are definitely tasks that someone should never delegate. In a lot of businesses, you are key, right? Especially if you are a founder, it was your brain, your passion, your mission, your vision. Those are the things that you shouldn't delegate or you shouldn't give up. There are a lot of people listening that probably use ghostwriters, always really weary on ghostwriters and say, well, what happens if you're on an interview and they ask you a question about what you wrote with quotations? How are you going to respond to that? It has to be your ideas. Those are the things, in my opinion, that you shouldn't delegate. Do you feel the same? What is your high level of, do not delegate this?
Yeah, I think anything that involves your, vision and mission and that creation. So, we did something that we did this earlier this year is implement strategy sessions, and that's something you can learn more about on our website, and maybe we can include it in the show notes as well.
Of course. Yeah.
But generally, something that you shouldn't delegate to your virtual assistant is that overall strategy in determining where you want to go. So you might say, I know that I want to grow my business, and I know that I want to do it with several different channels. I want to do it with online marketing, I want to do it with traditional marketing. Um, but just going to a virtual assistant and saying that isn't going to get you very far because you're the only one that knows the why about why you want to grow your business. Do you want to grow it so that you can develop an exit strategy and sell the business one day? Do you want to grow it so that you can pass it on to your children? Do you want to grow it so large that you can make an early retirement? There's a number of different reasons why you might wish to grow your business. Um, and so really understanding that why isn't something that you can delegate. You could, however, understand that, come up with that plan, talk to your virtual assistant and say, I want to grow the business. And I think that social media is going to be a good way to do that. And then talk to your virtual assistant about like executing the strategy. So saying to my VA, I'm going to delegate following new accounts, building up my followers, engaging with my followers, doing new branding for my graphics, any number of things. When you're still not delegating that why. In my opinion, you still, as an owner or founder or an executive, the buck still stops with you. And so anything that's involving just the vision and growth and expansion of the company still has to come from you. You can certainly execute all of those parts. Just like Nicole had the idea for the book, and we delegated lots of things around it. But the idea for the book, the actual content of the book still came from Nicole. Um, but as she mentioned, there were still 85 tasks that had nothing to do with the writing of the book that we could delegate. So we still saved a lot of time by doing that. And if we hadn't delegated it, we would probably still not have a book on the market because we would have had to find the time to do all these things. But I think that's a good example of that.
I agree. Yeah. And it made me think about, we were just talking to Becca about feedback on our one of our most recent podcasts, right? Just because you're a visionary and you run the company doesn't mean that you can't accept feedback. You can't ask for feedback. But as far as delegation goes, you should be the one to make the decisions, and then delegate the actual tasks. A lot of people get tripped up on expecting your assistant, whether it's a virtual assistant, executive assistant, to be that thought leader and to give you those answers. They can provide research for you based on whatever strategy you're looking for. You don't have to always have the answer to say, this is what we're doing with our marketing plan. This is where it needs to go. You can ask them, can you do some research for me? Where I need some more ideas on where we should take this. Can you give me a compare and contrast on these case studies, right? It could be anything, but you shouldn't rely on them to make the final decisions for you as far as strategy goes. And I think a lot of times people get hung up on that when they start delegating, and they may not know it, right? If it's not front of mind, you may think, well, my assistant, I got lucky. My assistant's great. They do all of these things for me. Why aren't they coming up with the growth plan? Why aren't they giving me more reports? So if you're finding yourself thinking about that, or you're in this like rut, take a step back and assess what you feel should be on your plate and where you want the company to go. And delegation should be a separate, entity. It shouldn't be, this blurred line, which I think we see a lot, which is part of why we've implemented the strategy sessions, as Danielle said, as part of our service, because it can be a gray line when you find this great assistant, but knowing what to delegate, how to delegate is important.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to say, when you're talking about, when to delegate, something that I always tell new clients when they're coming on is, a lot of times, like, they will say, I need a virtual assistant. I want a virtual assistant. Like, please give me someone today. Um, but a lot of times they just don't know where to start. So we talked about, maybe a task that's been on your to-do list and it's carrying over week to week to week. But there's another sort of practical way that, that we make that happen with clients. So sometimes I'll tell them to think about the past 3 days, the past week, think about all of the tasks that you've done. And we can then just list all of the tasks you've done, and then we can put them into three buckets. So the first bucket is things that we can automate. So maybe sending out your invoices. Maybe that's something that we can automate with your platform. Like, if you use FreshBooks or QuickBooks, your VA can say, hey, I can set this up one time and set it and forget it, and it will work itself. Um, your VA may be able to help you see things and say, you can automate these invoice reminders, for example. That's something that our system automatically automates for us, that we do internally. But there's a number of things that hopefully your virtual assistant, with the skills and the expertise that he or she has from being a VA, can say, like, we can just automate this. You don't have to worry about this. The second bucket is things that only you, as the entrepreneur, as the business owner, can do. And this can be tricky because sometimes a lot of things can kind of creep in here. But if you have a good virtual assistant, they will professionally push back on you and tell you the things that only you can do. And you will hopefully be very surprised that it's not a very long list. There's a lot of things that you can delegate with the right person, with the right expertise, with the right platforms that they have the knowledge of. And then the third things are the things that you can delegate to your virtual assistant. So, um, and that is hopefully the bulk of the tasks. So we always, when someone doesn't know what to delegate, we think about those three buckets. So automate, keep, and delegate. And that's a really great exercise to do, to just kind of figure out where you're spending your time. I think most people would be really surprised to see how much of their time they're spending on things that maybe don't move the needle as much. It doesn't mean that they don't need done. So, for example, invoice follow-ups, they need done so that you get paid. Um, is that the best use of your time, to sit there and type up emails to everyone like, hey, I'm just following up on the invoice? Or is it something you can automate? Is it something you can have your virtual assistant do? So those are just some good examples. But that's where I always tell people for where to start when they want to delegate.
I think that makes it really easy for them for our listeners to understand. You should be drawing three boxes, as Danielle explained.
Yes.
What last piece of advice do you have for our listeners on delegation?
I think one big piece is making sure that your expectations
Mhm.
are relatable upfront. So share with your virtual assistant what your expectations are and be specific. So what I've seen a lot of, and I've been doing this now for 16 or 17 years, like, if I say to Nicole that I want to create this, I want to write this blog post about our upcoming podcast series that we're doing with other virtual assistant company owners. And I want to write this blog post and I want it done ASAP. Well, ASAP to Nicole might mean stop everything else that I'm doing right now.
15
Even if
minutes.
Yes, I have many other priorities. Um, Danielle doesn't want me to do any of these things or manage the team. She just wants me to work on this blog post. I might have meant that as like, I'd like to get that out by the end of the week. Um, but I wasn't specific and I just said ASAP. ASAP is not a time. So being specific with those expectations. If you say to your virtual assistant, I really need to hear from you. Um, some people like to receive an email from their virtual assistant when they send a task that just says, um, "Hey, Greg, I got it. I will go ahead and do this by Friday." Some clients don't want to hear that at all. They don't want to hear from you until you've completed the task and you're sending it to me and you're saying it's delivered. I don't want any extra communication. So being upfront about those expectations. When do you want to hear from your virtual assistant? If you say that you want that responsiveness is important to you, what is a fast response to you? Is that if you send it in the morning, you want to hear back by lunchtime? Do you mean that you want to hear back within a day? When you're talking about communication, setting up those expectations. So some clients I had a client years ago that always wanted like a confirmation before our meeting. So it would be like, text me 15 minutes before our call just to remind me so I can stop what I'm doing and get set up for our call. Now, not every client would want that. Many would find that really annoying and it would just be another channel that they have to check and they don't want to deal with that. And they'll just say, if I schedule a meeting, I'll be there and that's it. But others, do want something like that. So it's just important about being upfront with those expectations with your virtual assistant. Our VAs at Virtual Assist USA are really, really good. Um, they're not mind readers, so you have to share that with them. Um, and that doesn't mean that your expectations are wrong. There's again, like no right or wrong expectation, but just sharing that with your virtual assistant. So if you're someone that doesn't like to do phone calls, say that to your virtual assistant. Like, I don't want to get on the phone unless it's absolutely necessary. Can we just sync up via email once in the morning, once in the afternoon? That's the way that I work best, and that will help me. Other clients want to, send text messages back and forth throughout the day, whatever it is, just being upfront about those expectations, I think is really important.
I agree. I would add to ask. I always tell our clients just ask, right? If you are unsure if your virtual assistant can help, it can't hurt to ask. And to piggyback off your blog example, right? I would like this blog post written about XYZ. Can it be done by Friday? Can it be about 4 or 5 paragraphs? And ask for a confirmation in response, right? Uh, Having those expectations set written down is makes things easy, right? It's able to have that track record too. It's written down where the virtual assistant can go back and say, okay, yes, I'm going to put this on my calendar, due by Friday. This was the expectation. And I always advise to have a check-in, especially for longer tasks, right? So if you say to your virtual assistant, can you do this 10-hour project by the end of next week? Check in at 5 hours, check halfway in, right? To make sure that you're on the right track and that 10 hours haven't been spent. The end of next week comes and it's not done, right? Setting those expectations up for success and checking in and having a live discussion with your assistant is going to set you up for success ultimately. Because, like Danielle said, we're not mind readers, right? It is something that comes and builds upon. So I always default to ask the questions, set the expectations, and use Loom video to record
Yes.
what you are looking to have done. If it is obviously not confidential, if it's something that you know how to share a screen and record, but they always come in very handy because then you can create SOPs from them, and it is very easy to move on and continue to delegate in that manner.
And I would say that that just made me think of something else, Nicole. Like we were talking about just different expectations and communications and whatnot. Something that was like Nicole and I do because we work so closely together. Nicole and I could stay on the phone all day, every day with things that we
Oh
have to
yeah.
talk about. And we would get nothing else done because we would be talking about, all these things that are on our list. So something that we did a few years ago, it's been probably, is we just
Oh, yeah.
set regular meetings throughout the week. So, at 2 o'clock, 3 times a week, we talk and we always know we have that conversation. And then certainly we talk in between that. But a lot of times what will happen is something will come up for myself or Nicole, say in the morning, and I'm like, you know what, this can wait till I talk to her at 2 o'clock. And I'll go ahead and complete the rest of my tasks that I'm working on. And when I talk to Nicole in 4 hours, we'll talk about it then. And that has saved a lot of time. And so if you can do that with your virtual assistant, where you're setting up a cadence of regular check-ins with them that you always know that will happen, that will prevent a lot of the back and forth with, I feel like I always have to be on the phone with them, so I don't miss anything. You'll always know, okay, I'm going to talk to her. I'm going to talk to him this afternoon. So this can wait a few hours, or it can wait till tomorrow. And you start to learn what's urgent and what's not urgent.
Which we talk a lot about in our book as well. And
Yeah.
we can talk about this forever, but when you said that, we also use a live document, right? We use a live spreadsheet to make sure that we're on the same page, right? I may think, 10 o'clock, I want to talk at 2 to Danielle about this. Let me put it on the spreadsheet. That way I don't forget. It is now out of my brain onto the paper. I can think about something else. But it also, a live document, whether it's a spreadsheet, which is very simple, or a platform, something that is live and that keeps track of what you've delegated, when it's expected to be done, what's the status, is definitely going to assist you further with delegating to your assistant.
Yeah, absolutely.
Any last again, any last pieces of advice, Danielle? I know we can talk. We may have to do part 2, but do you want to talk to our listeners about our VA series in the fall? Maybe that will help us wrap up
Yes. So, as Nicole said, this is something we feel like we could talk about for a very long time. And so something that we've done that we feel like has been, something that we've been really looking forward to is that we're meeting with other, I had alluded to it earlier in the podcast, but we're meeting with other really important people in the VA industry. So stakeholders, owners, other COOs, CEOs of different virtual assistant companies in this space. We're going to be talking about the industry in general, how people can work with virtual assistants, how other companies do it. We're just going to be hoping to, further the recognition and the acknowledgement of this industry and answering questions. And so this is going to be coming in the fall. It's something that Nicole and I are really excited about, because we're getting to talk to other big players in the industry. If you followed us for some time, you know that we've been in business now for 16 or 17 years. So we've seen a lot of changes in the industry, and are just looking forward to speaking to that, and taking all of our insights as well as the insights of other leaders in this industry, and just collaborating together, not in a competitive sense, but just being able to communicate together and share, with other business owners, other leaders, how a virtual assistant can benefit them.
Yes, and it will be part of the podcast. They'll just be episodes, just to clarify that, there will be episodes in the fall that just surround virtual assistants, delegation, remote leadership, remote culture. So that is all things September, October, and potentially November, because we are booking up. But if you want more information on delegation, Danielle, can you tell them where they can find us if they don't already know?
Yes. You can reach out to us at virtualassistusa.com. I answer all of the emails from there personally. So if you have a comment, a question, you're wondering something about delegation, we said something that you want to talk more about or curious about, you can reach out to us there. It goes directly to my email. We can set up a call, we can email, whatever works for you. And we can talk about that.
Thank you, Danielle. If you need more information, look in our show notes. I will also put Danielle and myself's LinkedIn so that you can connect with us there too and see all of the things that we post about remote leadership, delegation, and how to best use your virtual assistant.
You've been listening to Not Your Average CEO Lifeline with your hosts Danielle Como, CEO, and Nicole Glitchio Els, COO. This podcast has been sponsored by Virtual Assist USA. If you'd like to know more about the hosts or exploring virtual assistant services, visit virtualassistusa.com for more information.